When I posted my video about recent failures, I really was making that video from a place of frustration because I had been working on this costume for 9 months and I really didn't have that much to show for it. I preach a lot about taking care of our mental health on this channel because making things is hard work. It's a lot for your brain to take on making something from a video game or from a movie into an actual 3D wearable thing that you can put on your body, and we have to kind of be better about recognizing that. And while we're ultimately having a lot of fun doing it, at least I hope you're having a lot of fun doing it, we shouldn't ignore the fact that it does take a lot of brain energy to get all of this out. Also, side note, I will be destroying my Animal Crossing island during this video. I thought it would be kind of a different twist on my usual talking head videos because one, it kind of ties into something that I'm going to talk about later, and Animal Crossing has been helping me a lot during this period of almost burnout that I have, and two, that November 5th update is coming very quick and I need to flatten this island and get things in check, so why not kill two birds with one stone? I think a few of you called it before I was even ready to admit it to myself that I was heading for some pretty gnarly burnout. I even went back and read a few of my own journal diaries during the period. It was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was even writing in my journal that I feel like I'm burnout, or after this project I'm taking a break because I just can't do this anymore, and I'm kind of mad at myself. I read a lot of literature. I read a lot of books and watch a lot of YouTube videos on this whole burnout phenomenon, so you would think of all people that I would recognize that I'm burnt out. And here's the thing that I've kind of come to realize is that if you're questioning that you're burnout, you most likely are already burnt out, or you're very, very close and on the cusp of being burnt out. Burnout looks different and feels different for pretty much everybody, but it's kind of categorized as a state of feeling emotionally and physically and mentally exhausted caused by excessive and prolonged stress. So you know what I did whenever I started to feel burnt out? I kept working because I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to rest. I don't know how to sit still. And whenever I quit social media back in August, I remember specifically having the hardest time with being bored. While I was getting a lot accomplished every day because I had no social media, I was editing a lot of videos, I was exercising, I was taking Aries out for a walk and reading a lot of books. It never really felt like I was getting enough done during the day. And I always felt like I could never shut my brain completely off and just like be and exist as a human. I felt like I had to be constantly making things to validate having a good day. Like, just as I was starting to feel like I was at my limit, a few things like happened in my personal life that basically forced me to take a 3-week-long break from doing any kind of cosplay or video related work. And the first and least depressing is that both of my 3D printers basically shit the bed at the same time. I was trying to print out a jetpack for Bo-Katan, and I will show you all of the failures of said jetpack, and they were just failing for absolutely no reason. And then one day the printers just stopped working. I have no idea why, because I had just recently serviced them. Like, I put new belts, I put new rollers on them. I know one of them needed a heated bed and I had ordered a heated bed for it. And the thing that happened after those two printers just kind of died was I got the heated bed replacement in and I couldn't even bear to open up the box that the heated bed was in. I didn't even want to think about fixing my printers because even just the task of that felt incredibly daunting, and you would have thought that I would have realized, hey, maybe you're a little burnt out on this. Can I just tell you that even though my body and everything basically was forcing me to take a break, it was the hardest thing that I've had to do in the past like couple months. I knew that I needed to slow down. I knew that I needed to take a break from making, like, I'm talking videos, cosplay, everything. My body and mind were screaming at me every single day to do something. And I think a big part of it is that we as a society place like entirely too much weight on being productive and creating things and then putting value into said things that we're creating as markers of us like achieving something for the day. And I am consistently guilty of this. I feel like if I miss an upload every week, I'm a failure and that I'm a loser and I can't even get a video up, and when I love doing this and I'm going to lose viewers and people won't trust me, and it's just this continuous spiral. I'm somebody who absolutely loves creating things and putting them on the internet, and I absolutely loathe the title of content creator, but it's it honestly is kind of something that encapsulates everything that we do. Like, what the heck do you call what we do? I know that my costumes are not inherently content, and I would hope that people watching my videos wouldn't see me as a content machine. And this brings me to the first symptom of burnout, as I learned about in a book aptly titled Burnout, which I've read far too many times and listened to a lot on audiobook. And that symptom is the emotional exhaustion or the stress of just caring too much for too long. Now, I think that this is something that a lot of us makers and cosplayers especially can heavily relate to. When I'm making my videos and just making things in general, I'm constantly worrying about if I've got my angles just right so I can explain my techniques to you a little bit better, and I'm always writing and rewriting my bullet points for videos so that I'm not like wasting your time, even though I think that this one's gonna be a little bit wordy. So I know for me personally, the last year and a half, I've basically been living on social media to kind of keep everyone updated about what I'm doing. I mean, I created this YouTube channel to, you know, even showcase a little bit more whenever I was getting a little bit burnt out on Instagram and just taking photos. And there even came a point where even just posting on socials and commenting and liking other people's posts just became so exhausting to me. Like, I was worried about a post doing worse than the last one that I posted, or filtering the photos just right so they would match my feed. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt like a failure sometimes. And man, if that's not how I feel about most of like the social media that I've been interacting with this past month, again, why did I not recognize that I was burnt out? This kind of leads me into my first thing of how I deal with burnout, and it's that I immediately take a break from social media. I know that some people like to go to social media, or they like to, you know, go to YouTube and Instagram for inspiration, but I personally find that whenever I'm feeling burnt out on the hobby, that if I'm seeing people, you know, being productive and getting work done on their costumes, I start to get kind of resentful. And this is no knock on them. They're allowed to post whatever they want to post, but I have to be cognizant of my own mental health, realizing like, why am I getting angry at somebody for progressing on their costume? We should be celebrating that. So that's usually one of my first hints of like, okay, I need to just take a break. So some other symptoms that the book lists out is a depersonalization, or like a decreased lack of empathy or compassion for somebody. And believe you me, whenever I felt that hard this past go around, like I mentioned earlier, whenever I started to feel this way about seeing people's posts on my feed and just getting angry with people for absolutely no reason, yeah, I felt this symptom pretty dang hard. And then it ends up turning into like this really negative voice in my head being like, you don't deserve your audience on YouTube, or why would anyone want to follow you? You barely post. And like, these are just some weird things that I'm sure that I'm not the only person that says this to themselves, but like, at the end of the day, I say this out loud and it just sounds absolutely ridiculous. I didn't recognize it at the time as like being a symptom of almost being burnout, but obviously hindsight is 2020. So try to recognize when you start to feel this way in your own hobby or the thing that you're struggling with, because it's normal to experience highs and lows, especially just in everyday life. But if there's a persistent occurrence of you just being annoyed or pissed off about something, it's a pretty good indicator that you need to take a step back from said thing that is causing you those issues. The third and final symptom was a doozy for me, and it is the lack of feeling of accomplishment. And when I tell you that, you know what, this one hit me pretty hard. So as I took my 3-week break, I decided to sit down with my journal and a past year's calendar and essentially circle all of the dates in which I had either uploaded a video or did a live stream, and I was pretty impressed with myself. I realized that I had essentially kept to my word in my 2020 goals video of posting 1 video a week. There was even a period in August where I was, you know, publishing 2 videos per week whenever I was getting my Sylvie stuff out. I was pretty proud of that whenever I sat down and recognized like, wow, I have stuck to my goals. And then not even like maybe an hour later, I started to look at the 2 weeks that I took off, and now it'll be 3 after I took last week off. And I was like, but why didn't you get videos out during those weeks? And that is like the most toxic mindset, because whenever I went to my journals and looked at those weeks, I recognized, hey, there was actually something going on in my life that caused me to not make a video. And they weren't always major, and like one of them was literally like, I just don't have it in me to sit in front of a camera this week to film a video. And that's fine. Like, I don't have to have some grand reason for not, you know, putting up a video. It's not the end of the world, and I still posted pretty dang consistently throughout the past year. And I even did double in August. So like, why wasn't I feeling proud and accomplished by that feat? And all I can think whenever I say, you know, pride and accomplishment accomplishment is that Reddit post from Battlefront 2. I bet a few of you feel similarly about a recent costume that you've made. Like, I don't want to say it over and over again, but I didn't have the same feeling of satisfaction that I normally get. And that should have been a huge red flag to me that I was headed for some burnout. So now that we know all of the symptoms of burnout and how I experienced them personally this time around, what the heck do we do about it? Well, you should first congratulate yourself because the first step is acceptance, and you've accepted that you're either burnt out or you're on the way to being burnt out. The next thing that I would recommend and has personally worked for me is to try and not rush anything. Don't say to yourself that you're going to take a day off and then jump back in, because if you're at the point of burnout, chances are that you've got a lot of pent-up stress that you really need to relieve, and it's going to take a lot of time to recover. So for example, if you have been working on something for 9 months and now you're just at the point of burnout with this costume, that's 9 months of pretty, low grade consistent stress that you're going to need to work out of your body. And one day of not working on cosplay is not going to fix it. I see this so much because there's a lot of videos on YouTube with like clickbaity titles of saying like how to get rid of burnout fast. And at least personally for me, that's just absolutely not the case. The next thing that I like to do is ask myself why I think I'm burnt out. And I know that that sounds like a really strange thing to ask yourself. Like, I'm burnt out because I'm working too hard, obviously. But yeah, of course you are, but why are you working so hard in the first place? It's important to get to the core of why you're doing these things, because if you're just going through the motions day after day and you don't have a good solid reason in the back of your mind why you're doing it, you're just going to end up falling into the same traps after you get out of burnout, and you're just going to burn yourself out all over again. The third thing that I usually do is where the action typically comes in, or sometimes inaction in a few cases, and that is to complete the stress cycle. And that is something that is also mentioned in the book Burnout, and I will also link a video down below of like what exactly the stress cycle is. The way that they talk about it in the book is that stress is your body's response to outside stimuli that is threatening, and that we need to like run away from the quote unquote lion, so to speak. When we feel stressed or burnt out, we have to find a way to tell our bodies that everything is fine, and that's where this whole like completing the cycle thing comes in. I know this feeling all too well owning a 3D printer, because boy, do those things like to test us, because they'll just quit on you for no reason, and then I'm spending an hour or two out of my day that I hadn't planned on troubleshooting them, trying to fix this weird thing that I'm not sure will actually work, and I have to sit down and monitor the print for 15 minutes, and oh shit, it's still not working, so stop the print and find another fix and do the whole process over and over and over again until it's fixed, or I have just completely given up. But the thing is like all I want to do is I want to smash these printers against the wall, and I know that it is just going to make things worse. Did I stress you guys just talking about that? Because I feel like I just stressed myself out reliving it. While it may feel silly to be stressed about things like a 3D printer not working or not knowing what specific paint color you want to paint on your model or armor, your body doesn't know the difference. Your body is basically shooting out stress juice everywhere whenever you get worked up, no matter if it's getting worked up over a paint color or if it's you getting worked up because you are actually getting chased by a lion. And if you're getting chased by a lion right now, then I don't know why you're watching my YouTube video, but thank you for the view, I guess. And the thing with your body producing this stress juice, and I know it's cortisol, I just really like saying stress juice, is that you're going to have to get rid of that stress juice in some way. And that's again where this whole completing the stress cycle thing comes in. Completing the stress cycle can mean many different things for different people. Some people like myself find exercise to be a good way to relieve stress. And remember, if it's been years of pent-up stress over things, then one session is not going to do it. You kind of have to make it a daily or weekly habit to work out, 4 to 5 days a week. But what if you don't like working out? What if you don't want to work out? You can totally do other things that they mention in the book, like asking somebody for a hug. I know that sounds weird, and I'm totally not a hugger, so I don't think that it would really work for me, but my husband is, so maybe this is a way for him to complete his stress cycle. So outside of their suggestions in the book, there are some other things that helped me through the past 3 weeks of almost burnout, and the first one, I played a lot of video games. I let myself enjoy these video games for what they are, and to stop trying to do my little delusions of cosplay in my head of, oh, what if I cosplay that outfit, or wouldn't that make a cool video? I just played the game. It's extremely convenient that Animal Crossing is coming out with a new update soon, so I'll be preparing for that and actually streaming on Twitch now my Animal Crossing stuff. So if you want to see me doing this in real time, you can follow me over there for whenever I'm going live next. That's also another thing. I decided to start streaming again. Now you're probably thinking like, well, why are you creating more work for yourself while you're burnt out? Well, it's not necessarily that, it's just that I had been wanting to get back into streaming for a while, but the problem for me was that I saw doing creative streaming, so actually streaming myself making a costume, would be far too much mental energy for me to expend, because I'm just not great at entertaining and also working on something at the same time. Because if I'm going to be crafting for like 2 hours, I actually need to get stuff done during those 2 hours, and I don't want to neglect the chat or anything. So getting back into Animal Crossing and chatting while I'm playing has been really great for that, because Animal Crossing is incredibly chill and you can go at your own pace, and I don't have to worry about needing someone to read the chat to me so that I can actually, you know, talk back to you guys. It is another outlet for me to just, you know, connect with the community. Video games for me are one of the first things to go whenever I am getting sucked into video editing and making cosplay. So just allowing myself to play these games with no other kind of responsibility in mind and just to get excited over them really lifts my spirits. Another thing you can do is to take up another hobby or just explore something that you've been interested in that you didn't have the time to, you know, delve deeper into because of the thing that you're burnt out on. My thing was that I recently got back into collecting Pokemon cards. Now, I'm fully aware of the privilege that I have to get so invested in a hobby so quickly that requires money, but you know, your new hobby doesn't have to be that. It can just be something that you've been interested in for a little bit. Like, I don't know, maybe you're just super interested in the history of Chernobyl, which I am totally not interested in the history of Chernobyl. I don't know, you can like go down rabbit holes on YouTube and just like let your mind wander and let your mind just, I don't know, absorb new information that doesn't need to necessarily be created into content that you need to produce. I don't know, that was just something that I got into because for the fun of it. And I even thought about making, you know, card unboxings. And then I was like, I had to stop myself because I'm like, no, that is not the point of this hobby. The point of this hobby is for me to just enjoy it and to just enjoy it for the sake of enjoying it. And I've even been playing the trading card game online. And if there's something that you're interested in and you just haven't had the time to really dedicate to it, go for it whenever you're burnt out. Now, last and most importantly is actually getting some sleep. Now, obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I can't really help you if you have actual legitimate sleeping disorders like insomnia or other conditions like that. I didn't realize just how sleep deprived I was and bad my sleep was until I was actually getting consistent 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And to do that for me, I really had to change my routines around bedtime. I used to stay up till 10 to 11 playing these video games, and now I have to be a little bit more mindful and put them down about an hour or two before bed. If I don't, I'm gonna end up being restless and basically tossing and turning every night. So changing these habits sort of worked at first, but then I was still left with like thoughts racing in my head whenever I was in bed, especially while I was taking time off from cosplay because I kept on thinking I wasn't doing enough. So I did this experiment where right before bed or a little bit before, I would take out my journal and just kind of brain dump onto the page everything that I was worried about for the next day. I distinctly remember writing about being worried that a print would fail during the night, and you know what? It did fail, but for whatever reason, I was so much more calm about the whole situation because, well, I realized upon reading it the next day that there was nothing that my worrying would have done to solve it. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up taking a 3-week break. I didn't do any work on cosplay. I didn't really do any video work. I know that it seemed like to you that I was working on stuff, but I really wasn't. I ended up playing more video games, allowing myself to enjoy video games again. And I also, you know, I took up another hobby. I just, you know, let myself be interested in other things. And I was also making sure that I was getting enough sleep. But I also asked you guys on Instagram and also on YouTube on my community tab, like how you deal with burnout. And a lot of these answers are really good. So Jag Eye Hunter says, start a new project. Now, I am one of those people who has multiple projects going on at once with cosplay. And that is one way that I kind of combat burnout myself, is I will hop from project to project. So if I'm bored of working on 3D printing, then I will work on foam work. However, in this instance, it really didn't work for me. I was just fed up with cosplay regardless. So I just had to take a complete break. But that is a method to kind of combat burnout if you're able to, you know, have the space for multiple projects as well as the brain space for multiple projects. I know that that even in itself can be a little bit much for people to handle. Rajo30 says they unplug for 2 to 3 days from social media and they put on like meditation music and sit while drinking their coffee. So just being like more mindful of the things that they're doing in their day. And again, that goes back to my whole thing of I had to take a break from social media as well. And there's nothing wrong with taking a step back. If there are people in your life that are going to be mad at you for taking a social media break and you're not liking their posts or something like that, then that's a friendship that you kind of need to maybe question. But yeah, taking a break from social media, being a little bit more mindful of the things that you're doing day to day, and just letting your mind have the space to just wander is really great. Sir Jess 007 says to talk to somebody close in your life, and that is so important. If you have someone in your life that you trust, that you can talk to about how you're feeling, and you know that they're not going to judge you, then absolutely do it. I know that I talk to Brian all the time about how I'm feeling a little bit burnt out, or there's been multiple videos that I put out where I'm just like, this just wasn't as good as I think it could have been, and he's always there to kind of like bring me back and be like, no, you're totally fine, you're doing a lot. So if you have someone in your life that can be that for you, then absolutely do that. A lot of you guys said to step back and take a break, which is great. It is very hard to just step back and take a break, especially whenever it's something that you love and you enjoy, and once you stop experiencing like joy and, you know, having fun around it, that is a pretty good indicator that you just need to take a break. And I know it's hard. I know it's like we're programmed to be productive. So if you just sit on the couch for like 8 hours watching TV, you feel like an absolute lump. But the thing is that rest is productivity. I'm even coming at this from somebody who is not chronically ill or things like that, and people that have chronic illnesses, they know that all too well, that there's just some days where if you push yourself too hard on, like, say Monday, you might not be able to do anything for the rest of the week. And you know, it's one of those things where you kind of have to reprogram your mind over what rest is. Rest is productivity. The more you can kind of reframe that in your mind, then the better you'll be off. Silverback Prop says take a week off, focus on house projects, go out in nature, and video games. And going out in nature, oh yeah, that's a big one for me too. We ended up taking tons and tons of walks with Aries. We're very lucky to have a dog that, like, you know, forces us to go outside. Being out in nature helps a lot too. I do that sometimes whenever it's nice out and I'm editing videos. I like to just edit on our hammock sometimes, and that really does help as well. And yeah, video games are great too. It's really great to get back into a video game and remember just why you love the video game and not just because of the costumes. A lot of you also mentioned taking a break from whatever you're burnt out on and doing something else. So that kind of goes back into, you know, finding a hobby from your hobby. You could, like Silverback Props mentioned, work on house projects if you have a house. You could even do some other creative things, like you could do art, you could paint, you could, you know, just mess around in like MS Paint or mess around in Procreate or something like that. You know, you don't have to be good at it. You could just have fun and explore it and, like, you know, enjoying something and learning something for the first time. And I forgot to mention this earlier on, I actually bought a drum pad and some drumsticks to just kind of like hack on in the basement. Like, I'm terrible at it. I was a music education major in college and I had percussion classes and I'm absolutely terrible at it. But you know what? It's fun to like have something new to learn. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos on it and just like, I can see the progress day by day, but it's not something that I need to hammer home and, you know, get good at right now. It's something that's ultimately there for me to, you know, exercise another part of my brain. And the last one that I'll kind of touch on was from And Cosplay, which she's great. You should check out her YouTube channel. She is awesome. She's also really popular on TikTok, so go follow her over there, even though you don't need my endorsement to go follow her. So she says, my stance was that I needed to learn to be okay with being burnt out and not feeling silly for saying I'm burnt out on cosplay. That is so true, because I can't tell you how many times I just feel silly for saying I'm burnt out on cosplay. It's silly to say that. Like, it does feel silly to say that, because it's like, well, if you're burnt out on your hobby, then just stop it. But it's so much more deep than that, and that's something that I can't even get into in this video. So then she continues to say, I had to change my inner monologue from I must get this cosplay done to I would like to get this cosplay done, and if I don't, it's okay. And wow, that is so important, like changing your inner thoughts about this hobby and making stuff. That goes back to figuring out your intent and why you feel like you're burnt out. Because if you're just making YouTube videos to make money, or if you're just making costumes to just get clout or to get like to be the first person to finish a costume, you are going to burn out like so freaking fast. It's very important to change just the way that we talk to ourselves about our hobbies, because I've personally done this where I basically tell myself, instead of saying like, oh, I have to film a video today, to I get to film a video today. I get excited about filming videos for you guys because this is a way for me to connect. This is a way for me to create in just such a unique way. And I'm so incredibly thankful for all of you that have, you know, subscribed and have come on here and like share your stories or even come into my direct messages and just, you know, that's like the whole point of what I'm doing. Is I want to create a community. I want to you know, let people know that it is okay to be burnt out in a hobby that you used to have fun in. And there's just so many reasons that I do what I do that it's so important to change the way that you talk to yourself about the things that we do for fun. Because once you start to look at something as a chore or something that you have to absolutely do, it's gonna lead you down a pretty bumpy road. And it's just one of those things that it takes time. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's kind of like that negative self-talk. It's not gonna happen overnight. Anyways, guys, I have talked way too long. I have rambled so much, but at least I got my island flattened, so there's at least that. But I hope that this video was helpful in some way. I know that I rambled a lot, but I really enjoy making these videos. I really enjoy just talking about the mental side of doing this, because a lot of us are just not. We're more so concerned about the tutorials on how to make the things as opposed to the stories behind making the things. I think a lot of us forget about that. Like there's a story behind every costume that we make and every costume piece that we make, and we're not machines. We are not meant to just constantly churn out things and just put them out into the ether and pretend like it didn't take effort for us to make them. I have been wanting to talk about this for so long, but in typical me fashion, I didn't want to make a video about it until I had actually almost burnt out, because I wanted to be more authentic about it. But you know, of course, I wait until like the moment of me almost being burnt out to make a video on burnout, but it's how I roll. This is not my first foray with burnout. I almost completely burnt out on the hobby back in 2018, and that could be another video. But it's important for us to, you know, discuss these things and to recognize that we're not alone in, you know, feeling this way about our hobbies that we love. It's totally okay to experience just a feeling of, you know, not wanting to deal with it for a while, and you're not any better for pushing through it or lesser for taking a break. Definitely leave me your tips for getting through burnout, because I could always use a lot more tools in my toolbox. And as always, guys, I appreciate you guys so much for hanging out with me. If you guys want to chat over on Twitch, that would be awesome. So I will link that down below for you guys. And as always, I appreciate you guys so much. Make sure to take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye! I forgot what the heck my ending was, but whatever. Worked.